Yo, good morning. How you doing?
GM, doing well, doing well. How about it going?
Good, good. It's nice to finally get a voice behind the PFP after kind of jamming behind the scenes. Let me go ahead and get the rest of the speakers up here, and then we'll kind of kick off. I think we're just waiting on Owen, and then we'll get started with some intros, and then we'll dive into Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH, two of the sickest names in the Say ecosystem. Pretty sure the Say community is excited to learn more about, kind of what these assets entail and what they are, what makes them different, how they can benefit from them, how they benefit the Say ecosystem, all of the above. So, yeah, okay, here we go. We got Owen. All right, I think this is good. This is good. Good lineup to start with. Um, we got we got the founder of Nucleus. We got the CMO of Dinero. We got the Nucleus account, Owen, Vasco. Okay, yeah, let's get started. So, um, hello everybody. My name is Joe. I've been on the growth and marketing team at Say for over 2 years now. So it's been a while, and I've seen a lot of teams come and join the Say ecosystem. But today is a very exciting one for Say, as we have Nucleus and Dinero here to kind of talk about their recent integration into Say. Let's go ahead and kind of introduce everyone who's here. I'll kind of start with Vasco, and then we'll go to Colton. How's it going, Vasco?
What's up, man? Great. It's great to be back. It's been a while since I did one of these. Yeah, nice to meet everybody. I am Vasco, part of the Say Foundation team. I've been here for a while, working on mostly DeFi stuff. So very excited about this partnership. We've been working with Chunda, the Nucleus team, and Colton and the Dinero team for a while now. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about in this podcast, but I think the number one goal of this partnership was open the floodgates to a lot of ETH capital that it's sitting on slow, expensive chains, and just pour it over to the fastest chain in the industry. But yeah, I'll leave the floor to some of the other speakers. Maybe I don't know, Colton. I see you are unmuted.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? I appreciate you all hosting this. If I sound a little scratchy, I think I might be getting sick, but hopefully it's not translating too badly. But I'm Colton. I'm the CMO at Dinero, where we're really focused on building yield infrastructure and yield products for users and protocols, primarily centered around ETH staking at the moment. I'm sure we'll get into the technical details of what that means here in a little bit, but yeah, excited to be here. This is a partnership that's been a work in progress for a little while, so it's cool to see it finally live.
Awesome. I'm also starting to feel under the weather too. Every September I get like this. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and pass it to the founder of Nucleus. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you guys for having me. Also very excited to kind of chat a little bit more about what we're doing at Nucleus and specifically kind of how we're trying to help the Say ecosystem. But yeah, for a little bit of context, my name is Chunda. I'm one of the co-founders of Nucleus. And our focus, for those of you not familiar, is to basically bring what we like to call yield by default to different networks across the crypto ecosystem, and starting with one of the fastest in the ecosystem, Say. Um, so we'll get a little bit more into it, I'm sure. But yeah, let's give a quick intro there.
Awesome. And last but not least, Owen, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
It's doing great, doing great. Thanks for having us. Yeah, and just a quick primer on myself. Owen, I manage the DeFi ecosystem here at Say, and can just reiterate quickly that extremely pumped to see this come to fruition. We've been working on it for quite some time in the back end. actually since Penn blockchain back in, like, I don't know, it was cold out. So yeah, love to see this happen. And major respect to everyone that put in work to get this to where it is now.
Awesome. Yeah, I would like to hear, like, I think the Say community, they see when we announce, like a new team joining the ecosystem, but they don't see all the work that it takes to kind of make these integrations happen. How long did this integration take? Is this months, weeks, days, a year? How long has this been in the works?
I quick go, but actually, yeah, I went. I was at Penn Blockchain Conference. Saw Chunda go up and speak and kind of give, I guess, like, yeah, keynote of of Penn Blockchain on day one, and was chatting with a few other folks and was like, "That's pretty cool what they're doing over there at Ion." And Ion, Chunda can kind of get into a little bit more, but I believe rightfully so. It's the parent company of Nucleus, and I was like, let's chat, pretty much. And the initial thought was like, okay, let's enable native yield on Say, and I'm an extreme bull on native yield. Believe it's probably one of the coolest things that crypto has brought to just its users. So we got chatting, we get chatting, and it's essentially one of those things of just like, how do you make this appetizing for the users of Say and just crypto users in general? And that's really what is a lot of the work, is making it a product that people want to use. And yeah, we believe that it's there. Super Saiyan ETH is there, and then I can let Vasco kind of chat with or about the Dinero implementations because he was a lot closer to that.
Yeah, well, you covered most of it really. Like I think yield is what we're talking about here, and especially sustainable yield, and getting that yield is something that we've been working on for a while here at Say. As you may know, this is not the first implementation of a yield-bearing product and an asset in the Say ecosystem, and will definitely not be the last. When it comes to the actual mechanics of the LST behind Say and ETH, I think Colton and the Dinero team will probably be the best to sort of dive deep into how it works. I think the TLDR on my side, and the reason that got me so excited is it is the highest sustainable yield on any ETH LST in the market as of right now. And I think it's sitting at around 9% as of today. Colton, correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, and that's pretty exciting. But please feel free to dive a little bit deeper on how that works.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'll skip the technical thing right now. I just wanted to add one more piece of like interesting context, I guess, for like how this all came to be. I think what's really funny is like the timing worked out really fortunately, and I think what we're building with our branded LSC solution and what Nucleus is building with their default yield solution, like all of this stuff kind of came together at a good time. I think we both, as teams and projects, have similar goals. We just have different means of achieving those goals, and they actually are pretty like complementary to each other, which I'm sure we'll touch on a bit later. So yeah, I think this is one of those things that came together really nicely because the timing worked out, the scope of our products worked out, and then how our products are each implemented worked out really well. So I think working with Nucleus is something that's been pretty great for us, mostly because it's just another opportunity for us to bring yield to a chain while also letting them take the yield even further with the solution that they've built.
Absolutely. I think this is a good time to kind of give an overview of these say native ETH LSTs. Let's go ahead and talk about that. So since Colton, since you're on, let's talk about Saiyan ETH for a second. What is Saiyan ETH? I myself am an average crypto participant. I tend to fall on the left side of the bell curve. So I think it would be helpful if a quick explanation of what is Saiyan ETH, and then we'll dive into Super Saiyan ETH and kind of talk about the differences between the two.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we're all on the left side of the curve, so it's all good. But basically, like you can think of Saiyan ETH very similarly to any other like ETH LST that you might see throughout DeFi, whether it's like APX ETH itself, which is what we run, or whether it's Lido's staked ETH, or there's 100 of them. But like, you could think of it similar to any other LST. I think what makes Saiyan ETH in particular very interesting is that it's built on top of our PX ETH liquid staking solution, and PX ETH is designed with this sort of like two token model that allows us to optimize sort of yield on both sides of the risk curve. So we have PX ETH, which is really just an ETH pegged asset that doesn't receive staking yield. And then you can opt in to stake that PX ETH to start receiving staking yield. And since all of the PX ETH isn't staked for APX ETH, APX ETH receives higher staking yield than most other LSTs. If actually, no, I'm not going to hedge it. It is the highest yielding LST in really the entire space. And what we thought would be really cool is to find a way to kind of like expand the infrastructure so that we could go multi-chain without needing to, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, you if you're going to a chain, you want to be able to tap into that community more effectively than just being like, oh, we're here now and that's like all it is. Like, being able to create branded LSTs on top of APX ETH allows us to do kind of two things. One, it allows us to tap into the community better, keep the brand consistent, give something that the ecosystem can sort of rally behind. And then two, it allows us to like offer APX ETH yield to a way wider variety of users while also giving them the highest sort of staking yield available. So yeah, you can think of Saiyan ETH as any other LST, except the yield is going to be way better because underneath the hood it is just APX ETH, which is on mainnet.
Awesome, and very well said, and a great explanation of Saiyan ETH. By the way, I don't know who decided the names for these, but super hype and great way to tap into the the relentless community that we have here at Say. This is, like you said, this is definitely something that we can all rally behind and support, simply because A, it just sounds badass. B, paired with like some great tech behind the scenes. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and the token icon is kind of sick. If anybody hasn't seen it yet, I definitely recommend trying to find it and checking it out. I think it's a really cool tie-in to the community you guys have built here.
oh yeah, and that as well. The token with the Pepe, the same Pepe, is remarkable. Very we're a very professional chain, by the way, very professional industry here. Yeah, let's go to Super Saiyan ETH. Let's talk about what makes that unique, what makes it different from Saiyan ETH, and then we can kind of dive into to the next stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So I think in order to understand Super Saiyan ETH, it's good to understand a little bit of background about what we do at Nucleus. So when you think about Nucleus, and we try to keep this as simple as possible, we love this idea of something that we call yield by default. And what yield by default basically is basically this idea of, by moving your assets to a new ecosystem, you're exposing yourself to a new on-chain economy with new applications, new types of infrastructure, and a lot of things that power that chain in that ecosystem. But right now, when users bridge their assets to another ecosystem, they usually do one of two things, or even both, which is one, lose out on some of the yield sources that exist on mainnet, and then two, they don't really get to capture a lot of the value of the on-chain economy, especially from the infrastructure that exists in these new chains, right? Like, when were you able to get paid from the revenue that a DA service generates for a new rollup? Like that has never happened before. And so the philosophy behind what we want to do at Nucleus is to allow users to, when they bridge their assets over to a new ecosystem, to just earn yield by default from that ecosystem's on-chain economy and infrastructure. And what you see with Super Saiyan ETH is basically the epitome of that for the Say ecosystem. So what we enable with Super Saiyan ETH is backed by various different sources of yield-bearing assets. So these yield-bearing assets include assets like Saiyan ETH, as well as a little bit of a few others that you might be familiar with, like LSTs and LRTs. And what we do is we transfer the value of these assets and the revenue of these assets over to users. And then also we enable these assets to generate even more returns by deploying these assets into very risk minimized strategies that are usually tied to the on-chain economy of Say itself. So the infrastructure that will power Say, things like users bridging in and out of Say, actions like that will then power the revenue of this underlying asset. And so you can think of Super Saiyan ETH as being built on top of asset issuers like Dinero and assets like Saiyan ETH to be able to kind of drive all of the value of the on-chain economy on Say over to the user's hands. And then the goal is that you can use this asset all across the Say DeFi ecosystem. But I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself with some of the things that are going to be going on there.
Hey, no, very well said though, and it sounds super exciting. By the way, when we talked about where I fall on the bell curve, you guys definitely do not fall on the same level as me. You guys are definitely the right side, DeFi Chads, building these really amazing innovations, and I'm glad you guys are bringing them to Say. And with that said, I think this might be a good question for maybe Vasco or Owen to kind of talk about what does this mean, for the Say ecosystem. How are these assets going to affect the Say community? What can we expect? I know we've seen a new all-time high in Say TVL. We've also seen a new all-time high in Say daily active users. And I do want to say a big part of that is because of these talented teams like Nucleus and Dinero kind of bringing these new innovations to Say and bringing these new assets to have the Say community leverage on the fastest parallelized EVM. So, so my question is to anybody who's willing to take it is, what does this mean for the Say community? What can we expect from this integration, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think I can take this. That's a great question. So I believe that when users, like both power users and retail, think about depositing capital in any given chain, unfortunately, there's still friction and switching costs to go across one chain and another. We, of course, have bridges, but it is a convoluted process. It's getting better and better over time, but there are costs involved. Another cost that they take into consideration is opportunity cost, and that's the one that we're actually tackling here, right? If you, as Chunda mentioned earlier, you can earn higher sustainable yields on mainnet rather than another chain, there is no real reason to switch to a faster and maybe more efficient chain, like Say, if the opportunity cost is too high. So I think this is a step forward to bring that yield on Say and make sure that we are as capital efficient as possible, and the cost of switching over and bringing your assets over is minimized, and you actually can profit in doing so. And this obviously has a positive impact on TVL. And eventually, positive impact on TVL means more liquidity on Say, means better execution, means more volume, more traders, and just like network effects and a flywheel that you kickstart that's very hard to stop. That's the exciting part about this, in my opinion. And we have seen this playing out with a couple of campaigns that have been going on some of the apps in the ecosystem, such as Jellyverse, DragonSwap, and Yay. And I think that these new assets with very high yields coming into the ecosystem will only increase this effect. So this is pretty much how I see it on a high level. I don't know if Owen wants to add on to this.
Yeah, you pretty much answered it. It's just like, essentially, if you're a user, it's just a typical user, you hold money in a bank account, normally that money doesn't earn you shit. It's sometimes the same way within crypto. Like you can just hold WETH, and that doesn't really earn you shit unless it 10x's. Then I guess you can say it earns you something if you realize the cap gain. But this allows you to be more capitally efficient than all other users by always holding an asset that is yielding you some amount of value. And I think that is plain and simple, like one of the largest pitches to both of these assets. Yeah, but other than that, yeah, everything is great from what you said.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add on really quick, like it's no secret by now that like yield is kind of the lifeblood of the entire sort of DeFi ecosystem, no matter what chain you're on. And so bringing more yield to an ecosystem is like never going to be a bad thing. And the benefit of doing it through ETH or really through Saiyan ETH and then Super Saiyan ETH, like bringing it through an ETH denominated asset is always going to be a huge deal because that's one of the more liquid assets in the entire space. People feel comfortable holding it. They feel comfortable with where the yield's coming from because it's not like a crazy like Ponzi farm of some sort. And so the trickle down effects of that is that you have all of these DeFi protocols now building on Say who can integrate high yielding ETH denominated products, which is always going to be a win-win for not only the users but the protocols involved, because now they can sort of build around something that they know they can trust, they know that users want, and they know that is liquid enough and sustainable enough to be around for the long term.
Hey, well said, lads. And I think this is kind of a good segue into a big question that I get, and we talked about this from some of the main comms from the main Say account, is that there will be some integrations kind of coming soon. I don't know if I'm leaking alpha or we're okay to talk about this, but can we expect to see Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH utilized on some of the existing Say native protocols, maybe like Yay, for example, or Dragon Swap? Can we see some synergies between some of the existing dApps that we already have? Is that something that the Say community can expect? Is that something that's on the way or coming soon? I don't want to leak too much alpha, and feel free to shoot this question down. But can we expect to see Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH integrated with Say apps in the coming future?
100%. I would say not only is it something that is an expectation, it's going to be an inevitability. We're already working behind the scenes, and as soon as days, you'll be able to have use cases for both Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH in the Say ecosystem. I'll defer on whether or not we share the details on who we're working with just yet, but definitely keep on the lookout. Especially by next week, we'll have new and exciting use cases for both the assets in the Say ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one of our goals, whenever we first even started like tossing around the idea of doing this, like the goal was always to kind of like reach out to the teams that are already building here, that are native to the ecosystem, and make sure that this is something they're interested in, finding out where we fit in, what type of sort of integrations they want to do, et cetera. So it's definitely been a goal since even before the launch to make sure we're aligned with the teams building on Say.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's super exciting. So stay tuned, guys, for some upcoming announcements. And quick side note, make sure to follow all of the Chads up here who are kind of taking the time out of their busy day to address some of these questions that we have. And towards the end of the spaces, we'll leave some time for some more community questions, and maybe bring up some community members if anybody has any more to say. But I do want to ask too, quickly, was the integration into Say V2 a complex kind of endeavor, or was it something that was somewhat easy to do since Say V2 is now an EVM chain? Did it take a lot of developer efforts to kind of make this happen, to get Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH onto Say, um, or it's not that easy, and it did take some time, and there were some complexities involved? I'm curious to know how that process looked like. Feel free, Colton or Chunda, to take this question if you can.
This type of topic is definitely where I'm on the left curve. So, Chunda, feel free to take it away from here.
Yeah, 100%. I'll say there's always complexity in every deployment, especially when we think about security and monitoring. There is no such thing as having a perfect system there. So we always try to dot our I's and cross our T's when it comes to that. Say is definitely no exception there. But the thing I do like really appreciate was the ease of the compatibility of the core contracts in the Say state environment. Um, we talk about EVM equivalency and rollups, traditionally like Ethereum rollups, and how easy it is to deploy contracts there. Basically, the same type of experience in the Say ecosystem. So I encourage any type of app builders who are looking, especially if you have kind of applications which would work in like low latency environments, things like order book dexes, and you want to keep that EVM equivalency. look to say to try to kind of port those assets over in a very seamless manner, and that infrastructure over in a very seamless manner. In fact, I think the complexity lies in really thinking about, okay, in a low latency environment, what can we actually do? What are the new use cases we can bring? What are the new features we can add? Things of that nature that will actually extend out your kind of technical conversations, more so than the complexity of really deploying on set.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate that. Okay, so next question I have, and I think this is a pretty important one, is how do I get my hands on Saiyan ETH or Super Saiyan ETH? This is not financial advice, of course. Everyone, feel free to do your own due diligence. But let's say I have some ETH that's just been collecting dust in my ledger, and I'm looking to utilize it. I'm looking to bring it to Say. What are the steps that I take to get my hands on some Saiyan ETH and some Super Saiyan ETH? Because I'd prefer to have this rather than just vanilla ETH sitting around doing nothing. So what do I have to do to get my hands on these new assets? We could start with Saiyan ETH and then we'll go to Super Saiyan ETH.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, not financial advice, but you should never like don't be so boring as to leave like ETH just sitting in your wallet if you have the risk appetite for it. You know, always look for that little bit of yield, even if it's just staking yield. But in terms of Saiyan ETH, it's relatively straightforward. You can go to SayanETH.com or say.dinero.xyz. You'll see like a really straightforward interface where you can either choose to start on ETH mainnet as a destination chain or start as Say as the destination chain. Input how much wrap ETH you want to deposit, and you'll see how much Say in ETH you're going to get. And then from there, you just do a simple deposit. It's no different than any other sort of ETH staking LST. You'll also be able to track on the dashboard sort of the yield that's available, how much Say in ETH you have, etc. It's really easy. I recommend also, of course, if you're going to use this stuff, make sure you bookmark the proper links just as a safety precaution. That's with any new product launch, you want to make sure you're always going to the right URL.
100%. And on the Super Saiyan ETH side, also very simple experience. If you have, let's say if you're starting on mainnet, you can go to nucleusearn.io and go to our application and then deposit pretty much any asset. So we have a whole list of just immediately depositable assets. And if you don't have any of those in your wallet, you can actually just input whatever amount that you want to generate, and we can draw it from other assets in your wallet or even your brokerage account that you have on an exchange and directly deposit it onto Say with Super Saiyan ETH. And the best part about this is also if you hold Saiyan ETH either on mainnet or on Say, and you want to mint Super Saiyan ETH with it, you can do that as well to maximize your rewards. Again, no financial advice, but if you're holding Saiyan ETH and you want to kind of explore all of the options that exist with Super Saiyan ETH as well, you can go to that interface, nucleusearn.io, and deposit that there as well. Also, if you're like, hey, I'm just used to the Say interface, feel free to go to app.say.io. That is actually the canonical Say website, and go to the bridge interface, and that will send you directly to all those websites. So if you're, like Colton said, if you're like, hey, I don't really feel like bookmarking, this is so confusing, just go to the Say website, click bridge, click the app that you want to, or the asset that you want to bridge over, and it'll send you directly to the place where you can bring your assets over to Say or mint Super Saiyan ETH and Saiyan ETH on Say directly.
Hey, it sounds simple enough. Sounds so easy. An average Joe like myself can do it. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out after the spaces. Thank you guys for the TLDR there. I am monitoring the Say Discord right now. I'm also monitoring S3, one of the most popular Say communities. And one question I did receive that I thought was interesting, Colton, you mentioned that the yield that you can earn from Saiyan ETH is around 9%. Although we do know that current, just vanilla staking ETH is a lot lower than that. So I'm gonna ask a cardinal sin question. Where does the rest of the yield come from?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
totally fair question, and it's something we get a lot. So one quick tip I'll give is I actually just published a piece on this from the Dinero Twitter account. So if you go to at Dinero underscore XYZ, you'll see maybe like 1 or 2 tweets down, you'll see a piece I put out that kind of covers this if you're interested in a little bit more of a detailed explanation. But I think the quick TLDR is that, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, is that we use a sort of two token design that allows us to kind of like separate concerns for users. So whenever you first deposit into PXETH on mainnet, you'll receive PXETH, and the ETH that you deposited gets staked with Dinero validators, but the PXETH itself doesn't earn any yield. However, if you're holding PXETH, you can go use it to farm LPs on Curve or Balancer or wherever people typically farm DEX yield. And if you want to earn the staking yield, you then have to stake your PXETH and get a PXETH. And all of the staking yield from the ETH deposited to the PXETH system goes to APXETH holders. So it creates this interesting dynamic where users have to kind of make a choice on which sort of side of the risk curve they want to be on. If you're an active DeFi user, you just hold PXETH, sacrifice your staking yield, but you get to earn higher DeFi yields. Or if you want staking yield, then you just stake for APXETH and you'll earn the staking yield instead. And it's a completely sort of hands-off experience. And so in the case of Saiyan ETH, since it's really built on top of APXETH, you're receiving the same yield as APXETH. That staking yield is getting passed on to you as a user. And again, if you want a more detailed explanation, I definitely recommend checking out the piece we published. It's a quick read. It kind of gives some visuals for anybody who's a visual learner. But yeah, it's really just a matter of separating where the yield goes, and that allows us to offer higher yields on both sides of the spectrum for users.
Yeah, I have the exact same question for Chunda. By the way, Colton, thank you very much for diving in deep into how SETH works. SSETH puts yield on top of that, so it's yield on yield on yield on yield. How does that work under the hood? What sort of strategies do you envision will be the first ones to go live to boost yield for SSETH holders?
Yeah, 100%. It's a good question. Something that we're actively developing internally and should be going out as soon as few weeks, actually. So what we do at Nucleus, right, we're focused on kind of bringing yield from roll-up economies to users in the most risk minimized way possible. So what does that actually mean when it comes to two things? Where the yield is coming from, how we generate it, and what type of risks are we actually kind of underwriting here? So I'll start with the last part, which is, all right, what type of risks are you actually internalizing to generate more yield? So for us, traditionally, when we use apps in DeFi, we kind of internalize this concept of market risk. So market risk are things like price-based liquidations, are things like price volatility, are things like insolvency events, right? All these things tied to the volatility and the kind of rapid pace of crypto. Our philosophy within these types of assets is we actually remove as much of that volatility as possible to as near zero as possible. So where you're only going to be exposed to the price volatility of ETH as an asset. So you are not going to be exposed to any type of things like impermanent loss, liquidations on lending protocols, leverage, nothing like that. So now that we understand, okay, so we're taking this really risk minimized approach. How are you actually able to generate interesting yield when you're kind of minimizing this risk to be so narrow? And it's yield that's happening on top of these underlying kind of pre-existing yield-bearing assets like LSTs and LRTs. So what we do, right, is we build bespoke DeFi infrastructure and we look for specific narrow niche use cases within the current DeFi ecosystem. And we enable implementations of various different types of things that are tied to the on-chain economy of a rollup, and we are able to generate yield from that. So what does that actually mean? Like, let's get an example of this. So let's say that we know there's a whole bunch of people bridging in and out of Sei, right? And a lot of times when you use these third-party bridges, they're capturing fees from those bridging actions. And so whenever you bridge and a little bit of a fee is taken, that's going out to, a different type of kind of third party that is not tied to you or Sei directly. So one thing that we enable is we actually use the underlying liquidity in the actual network asset implementation, and we use that to actually help fill orders to enable users to bridge more quickly between different chains. Specifically, within this case, it would be bridging into Sei. And so by doing that, we're able to actually capture the bridge fees within the rollup or within the chain itself and within the users of the chain itself. So instead of those fees going out to, some third party application, it's instead going back to you, the end user, the end holder of SSE, the person who's choosing to opt in and participate in this on-chain economy. And so there are other use cases just like that, some of which are tied to the infrastructure that these chains use. Imagine, if a chain's using a specific Oracle provider, and some of the fees of that Oracle provider is actually diverted back to you as a user because you're providing the Oracle provider security and revenue by being a user in that ecosystem and using the applications that Oracle provider is connected to. Our focus is basically connecting all these different pieces of infrastructure that are tied to these chains, the revenue that they generate, and diverting that back to users. And so that way, you're not actually exposed to any of the crypto volatility while increasing the amount of revenue that you can generate yourself.
Well, that's bullish as fuck. But again, thank you very much for diving deep on how this works, and excited for next steps forwards, and obviously just a call to action for everybody. Just keep your eyes on Nucleus Twitter page. They're probably going to announce new integrations coming soon, and you'll see all of this happen in real time. So just make sure you follow Chunda and you follow Nucleus, Dinero, and everyone in this panel. Joe, I'll leave the chair back to you.
Yeah. So I guess where does the yield come from is actually not such a bearish question. There is an answer. There is an actual legitimate process for where all of this stuff comes from and where the yield comes from. And I appreciate you guys kind of explaining it in a way that even I myself, a humble shit poster, can understand. So the one last question that I have, and we kind of touched on this briefly, is what are some of the future plans for Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH? What can we expect to see? And then after that, we can see if any of the community members want to come up and ask some questions personally, and then I'll go ahead and give some time back to the teams to continue building. So, yeah. So what are the next steps? What can we expect to see going forward? I guess we can start with Colton, and then we'll go to Chunda.
Yeah, so I think the plan for us is relatively straightforward. Try to get as much ETH yield into people's hands as we possibly can, and I think that means getting as deeply integrated within the Sei ecosystem as we possibly can. So I think if you happen to be a team building on Sei, listening to this, and you want to find a way to offer ETH yield to your users, then reach out to us. We're always open to collaborations. I think Chunda would say the same thing. So in short, just trying to continue to market the product, continue to grow, and find the users who want it. And I think the Sei ecosystem has been really welcoming so far, so I don't think we'll have any issue doing that.
Yep, ditto on everything that Colton said. We're actively looking to find more applications to integrate with. We have a couple lined up that you'll be seeing announcements from very, very soon. I'd say the other thing to expect is, I'll drop a little hint here that we'll have something along the lines of incentives. If you go look at the Nucleus front end directly, you'll be able to see some of the things we're cooking up there. More info on that coming out very, very soon. And we'll make sure that when it comes to kind of earning yield on Sei, this will be the best place to start, and it'll only be the beginning, and there'll be so much more to do on top of this.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. All right. If you guys have any questions in the audience, feel free to request. This is the most dangerous segment of the spaces because we never know really what to expect when people come up. But I'm also looking through the comments to see if anybody's too shy to ask, directly. But we'll give it a minute. If not, we can, maybe wrap it up a few minutes early. But we'll see if anybody wants to come up and ask. I'll take another peek at the Discord too to see if we have any questions. Okay, I found a pretty decent one. One user asked, how do you plan to engage with the Say community to drive adoption of these assets? It's a bit repetitive because I know we just talked about future plans and incentives, but probably incentives would apply to this. And I'm curious to hear. Do you guys have any thoughts on this as well? Do you have any actionable steps that the Say community can take to get more involved, or how do you plan on leveraging the one of the most relentless communities in Web3 to drive adoption of Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH?
Yeah, I mean, I think on our side, we did touch on it a little bit earlier. I think part of it is just an awareness issue. So making sure we get it, in front of the right people. And I think the community here, hopefully, we built up enough trust over the course of this spaces to kind of show that this is an interesting product for the ecosystem and the people building on it. And so I think like evangelism from the people who the community trusts the most is always going to be important. And hopefully, we've built some of that here. But I think we'll also continue to do that with signs of good faith with all the people building on top of Say with the content we put out and the relationships we build over time. So I think ultimately that's our goal, and I think we'll find out over the next few months if ETH is something that people want or they don't, and if we're not serving the needs to the best of our ability, then I think getting that feedback from you guys is always going to be valuable. So anytime anybody has questions or feedback for us, please let us know because we want to make sure that we're serving the ecosystems we're building on to the best of our ability.
100%. I'd say also don't expect this to be the last time we're really out in the public talking about Saiyan ETH and SSETH and bring it to the ecosystem. We're going to be going on spaces, doing ecosystem threads, and chatting with a lot of the builders in the ecosystem about what we're doing and showcasing different types of opportunities there. So expect to see a lot more of this coming up in the future.
I really, really love those answers. Trust is a really big deal. And, you guys coming up here and talking to the Say community directly means a lot, means a ton, especially, given everything that's going on in the space. There's always malicious actors and such. And just being able to hear from the founders themselves and the teams themselves, it goes a long, long way. So, all right, I was able to bring up someone. We have Thomas, aka Crypto Boy, one of the mods. Who's been modding for the Say community for 2 years now, more than 2 years now. Always has great questions. GM, sir, what do you got for us today? Maybe a bit camera shy at the moment. Let me let's give him a second.
GM, sorry guys. I joined the spaces late. Sorry, this question might sound repetitive, right? But I'll be more than happy if you answer it for me so that I'll be able to help people also understand what is SS for the average Joe, like my boss. Like, what would be the benefits for the average Saiyan, and what can I do with it? When I mint it, what benefit do I get? And
Yeah,
what can it be used within the ecosystem for? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now, if you hold ETH idly in your wallet, right, either on mainnet or on Say, you're not really able to generate any yield on it, right? And so by minting SSETH, let's say if I'm just an ETH bull, I just want to hold ETH and do really nothing with it, be as risk minimized as possible. Well, I can mint SSETH and hold that, and it will generate. You could think of it as like a savings product for ETH. It's going to generate me more returns just by holding the base asset. And then now, if I want to go explore the ecosystem, the Say ecosystem, and I want to go see all the interesting applications, we're going to be integrating SSE into all of the major applications in the Say ecosystem. So things like DEXs, lending protocols, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe even some non-DeFi applications where you can use it for payments and things of that nature. You can go use SSETH as this base asset, and instead of, again, like using plain ETH where you're not actually generating return or additional return while you're going and participating in these different DeFi applications, with SSETH, you'll be able to go to these different DeFi applications, generate additional return, and generate whatever returns from those DeFi applications as well. So you can think of it as being like the starting place for the Say ecosystem if you hold ETH. instead of just holding idle ETH that doesn't actually generate revenue for you. And then it also opens the door to a whole bunch of various different DeFi opportunities that'll be coming up very soon.
That sounds pretty clear now. Thank you.
No problem.
And thank you, Crypto Boy, for all of your work you do for the Say community and for always asking really great questions, man. Appreciate it. And I think we covered a ton on this Spaces. This Spaces is also recorded too, so if you want to look back and listen back to some of the answers and how Super Saiyan ETH and Saiyan ETH work behind the scenes, the recording will be forever inscribed on X, so we'll always have that. But I think this is a good place to kind of give some concluding statements and then let these talented builders get back to shipping. We still got work to do. We still got mass adoption to get. So let's have some concluding statements from the teams, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's start with. Oh, did we lose Colton? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Colton
okay.
had to step out, but
Okay, perfect timing then. But we can hear from you one last time, and then maybe if Vasco and Owen want to hop back in and say goodbye, then we'll wrap it up.
yeah, 100%. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with Super Saiyan ETH and Nucleus as a whole, feel free to come and follow us at Nucleus Earn on Twitter. And if you want to catch up with any of the things that I'm chatting about with me at Chunda McCain. And keep on the lookout coming up from the Nucleus page, more about integrations of Super Saiyan ETH, what you can actually do with it, more about incentives coming up very soon, and just in general about kind of expanding the Say ecosystem from a yield perspective through this idea of yield by default. So more to come on all of that. And in order to keep up to all of it, make sure you catch up with us on Twitter.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come up here. This was a really, really informative Spaces. It was fun. It was engaging. So thank you, seriously, for just coming and chatting with the Say community. I know we all appreciate it. Vasco, Owen, any final closing thoughts before I rug the Spaces?
I'll just quickly thank you again to everybody. Default yield on Say is finally here. And couldn't be more bullish on it. Thank you all. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate the hosting.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Guys, make sure to follow all the people who were up here and speaking, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers, everybody.